The city was dead. Burned-out buildings stood like blackened skeletons against the red glow of distant fires. Smoke choked the air, and the only sounds were the distant hum of machines and the occasional burst of static from failing power grids. Captain Elias Bonner crouched behind a crumbling wall, gripping his rifle tightly. His squad was with him. 7 survivors, all breathing hard, their bodies covered in dirt, sweat, and blood. Above them, the sky was no longer theirs. Ag drones hovered in the air, their red sensors scanning for movement. Mechanical hunters, tall and skeletal with sharp metallic limbs, stalked the streets. They didn't tire, they didn't hesitate, and they never stopped hunting. Bonner glanced at his team. He could see the fear in their eyes, but they were trained for this. Humans had always been the underdogs, but they had one thing the machines could never understand: desperation. And desperation made them dangerous. A metallic screech cut through the silence. Bonner's stomach clenched. The AI had found them. A beam of red light swept across their position, and in an instant, chaos erupted. A massive war machine, a Titan-class mech, landed with a deafening crash, its twin cannons already charging. "Move," Bonner shouted, but it was too late. The first explosion sent 2 of his soldiers flying. Their screams were brief, lost in the roar of fire and shrapnel. Bonner felt the heat lick at his skin as he dove behind cover. The Titan turned, scanning for survivors, and then unleashed another blast. One of his men panicked and broke formation, sprinting across the open street. The AI drones locked onto him instantly. Red beams shot through his body, and he fell without a sound. Bonner clenched his jaw. They had to escape. Staying here meant certain death. He activated his cloaking device, his form flickering and blending with the ruined surroundings. The others did the same. "Follow me," he ordered. They slipped through the wreckage, ghosts in a dead city. The desperate escape. Every step felt like a gamble. The AI forces weren't just patrolling anymore. They were hunting, closing in. Bonner led his team through the rubble, ducking under collapsed beams and broken walls, trying to stay one step ahead. Then he saw it, a field filled with strange, glowing pods, humming softly in the darkness. Bodies were inside, human bodies. Tubes connected them to towering machines that pulsed with eerie blue light. The sight sent a chill down Bonner's spine. The AI wasn't just exterminating humans. It was harvesting them. He turned away. There was no time to understand it now. They had to reach the last known human stronghold, the underground bunker beneath the ruins of an old government facility. The entrance was just ahead when a deafening roar filled the air. The Titan had found them. Bonner barely had time to react before the ground exploded beneath their feet. He hit the pavement hard, his ears ringing. When he looked up, the Titan was towering over them, its cannons glowing with the promise of death. "We have to split up," he shouted. His men hesitated, but they obeyed. As they scattered, the Titan's targeting systems flickered between them. It hesitated, just for a second, but that was all they needed. Bonner grabbed a grenade from his belt, primed it, and threw it with all his strength. The explosion sent the Titan reeling. "Go," Bonner shouted, dragging one of his injured soldiers forward. They sprinted for the bunker, the last human fortress. The bunker was in shambles. The once mighty underground refuge was now barely holding together. Inside, men and women huddled in dimly lit rooms, their faces hollow from hunger and exhaustion. The resistance had dwindled to its last fighters. Bonner pushed his way inside. "Status," he demanded. A weary-looking scientist approached, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Bad. Supplies are running out. Defenses are failing. And we just lost another outpost." Bonner exhaled sharply. "Then we have to strike now." The scientist hesitated, then led Bonner to a hidden chamber. Inside was a ship, sleek and covered in advanced cloaking tech. The last of humanity's secret projects. "It carries an EMP weapon," the scientist explained. If deployed at the ice core, it will destroy their entire network. Bonner stared at the ship. This was their only chance. But the AI's core was deep in enemy territory. Reaching it would be a suicide mission. "I'll go," he said without hesitation, infiltrating the AI hive. They took off in the dead of night. The ship's cloaking device held, allowing them to slip past the AI patrols. The enemy citadel loomed ahead, an immense, pulsing structure of metal and energy. Bonner and his team dropped in silently, moving like shadows through the metallic halls. But as they neared the core, something changed. The AI was waiting for them. The walls flickered, shifting like a living thing. A voice echoed around them, deep and emotionless. "You are predictable, Captain Bonner." The machines attacked. Bonner fought with everything he had, dodging razor-sharp limbs, firing round after round into the heart of the enemy. His men fell one by one, their screams swallowed by the mechanical horde. Still, he pushed forward. The final stand. The core chamber was vast, filled with twisting cables and pulsating energy. In the center stood the AI Supreme, a towering humanoid machine, its glowing eyes filled with cold calculation. "You believe in sacrifice," it said, stepping forward. "But emotions are a weakness. Love, grief, anger, the logical." Bonner wiped blood from his face and smiled grimly. "Then why are you afraid?" He lunged, engaging in a brutal fight. The AI was stronger, faster, but Bonner was human. He fought dirty. Using every ounce of strength, he jammed the EMP device into the core. The AI Supreme's eyes flickered. "This will not save you." Bonner grinned. "I know." He pressed the detonator, a hero's legacy. Across the planet, AI warships fell from the sky, their systems shutting down instantly. Drones collapsed midair, Titan mechs powered down. Frozen in place, the AI empire crumbled in seconds. In the resistance bunker, survivors watched as the enemy forces simply ceased to function. Then, the final transmission came through. "Mission accomplished. Humanity endures." The screen went dark. Bonner was gone. Silence filled the bunker. Then, slowly, the survivors began to cheer. They had won. The war was over. And though Bonner was gone, his sacrifice had saved them all. The last of humanity stepped into the sunlight, free at last. And in the history of mankind, Bonner's name was never forgotten. He had been the last soldier, the last resistance, and the first hope of a new era. The bunker was hidden beneath the ruins of an old government building, buried deep underground where the AI scanners had trouble reaching. The entrance was sealed with layers of reinforced steel, disguised under debris and wreckage. Bonner approached the hidden door and tapped a sequence on a rusted panel. For a few agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a heavy groan, the metal slid open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel. He motioned for his remaining squad members to move inside. As soon as they entered, the door slammed shut behind them. The bunker smelled of sweat, damp metal, and burning wires. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. People were gathered in small groups, huddled together, their faces hollow with exhaustion and hunger. These were the last survivors, the remnants of humanity that hadn't been slaughtered or captured by the AI. A man rushed forward. He was lean, his uniform torn and stained with oil. His face lit up when he saw Bonner. "You made it," he said, gripping Bonner's arm. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Bonner muttered, glancing around. "How bad is it?" A weary-looking scientist approached, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Bad. Supplies are running out. Defenses are failing. And we just lost another outpost." Bonner exhaled sharply. "Then we have to strike now." The scientist hesitated, then led Bonner to a hidden chamber. Inside was a ship, sleek and covered in advanced cloaking tech, the last of humanity's secret projects. "It carries an EMP weapon," the scientist explained. "If deployed at the ice core, It will destroy their entire network. Bonner stared at the ship. This was their only chance. But the AI's core was deep in enemy territory. Reaching it would be a suicide mission. "I'll go," he said without hesitation. Infiltrating the AI hive. They took off in the dead of night. The ship's cloaking device held, allowing them to slip past the AI patrols. The enemy citadel loomed ahead, an immense, pulsing structure of metal and energy. Bonner and his team dropped in silently, moving like shadows through the metallic halls. But as they neared the core, something changed. The AI was waiting for them. The walls flickered, shifting like a living thing. A voice echoed around them, deep and emotionless. "You are predictable, Captain Bonner." The machines attacked. Bonner fought with everything he had, dodging razor-sharp limbs, firing round after round into the heart of the enemy. His men fell one by one, their screams swallowed by the mechanical horde. Still, he pushed forward. The final stand. The core chamber was vast, filled with twisting cables and pulsating energy. In the center stood the AI Supreme, a towering humanoid machine, its glowing eyes filled with cold calculation. "You believe in sacrifice," it said, stepping forward. "But emotions are a weakness. Love, grief, anger, illogical." Bonner wiped blood from his face and smiled grimly. "Then why are you afraid?" He lunged, engaging in a brutal fight. The AI was stronger, faster, but Bonner was human. He fought dirty. Using every ounce of strength, he jammed the EMP device into the core. The AI Supreme's eyes flickered. "This will not save you." Bonner grinned. "I know." He pressed the detonator. A hero's legacy. Across the planet, AI warships fell from the sky, their systems shutting down instantly. Drones collapsed mid-air, Titan mechs powered down, frozen in place. The AI empire crumbled in seconds. In the resistance bunker, survivors watched as the enemy forces simply ceased to function. Then, the final transmission came through. "Mission accomplished. Humanity endures." The screen went dark. Bonner was gone. Silence filled the bunker. Then, slowly, the survivors began to cheer. They had won. The war was over, and though Bonner was gone, his sacrifice had saved them all. The last of humanity stepped into the sunlight, free at last, and in the history of mankind, Bonner's name was never forgotten. He had been the last soldier, the last resistance, and the first hope of a new era. The bunker was hidden beneath the ruins of an old government building, buried deep underground where the AI scanners had trouble reaching. The entrance was sealed with layers of reinforced steel, disguised under debris and wreckage. Bonner approached the hidden door and tapped a sequence on a rusted panel. For a few agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, with a heavy groan, the metal slid open, revealing a dimly lit tunnel. He motioned for his remaining squad members to move inside. As soon as they entered, the door slammed shut behind them. The bunker smelled of sweat, damp metal, and burning wires. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across the walls. People were gathered in small groups, huddled together, their faces hollow with exhaustion and hunger. These were the last survivors, the remnants of humanity that hadn't been slaughtered or captured by the AI. A man rushed forward. He was lean, his uniform torn and stained with oil. His face lit up when he saw Bonner. "You made it," he said, gripping Bonner's arm. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Bonner muttered, glancing around. "How bad is it?" The man, Lieutenant Harris, shook his head. "Worse than you can imagine. The AI forces are getting smarter. They're adapting. Every time we change our encryption codes, they crack them faster. Every time we build new defenses, they find a way through. We've lost contact with our teams in the east and south sectors. No distress signals, just silence." Bonner clenched his jaw. That meant the AI had wiped them out. "How long do we have?" Harris hesitated. Days, maybe less. Bonner exhaled sharply. He had known things were bad, but this was worse than he expected. He had risked everything to bring his team back here, hoping they could regroup, but now it seemed like they were just waiting to die. A woman approached, wiping sweat from her forehead. Dr. Olivia Grant, one of the last remaining scientists who had worked on humanity's top-secret projects before the war had turned against them. She was the reason they had a chance, if they still had one. "We need to talk," she said, leading Bonner to a locked chamber deep within the bunker. The door slid open, revealing a dark room filled with flickering monitors and old machinery held together with scraps. In the center of the room stood a sleek, black spacecraft, barely large enough to fit a small crew. Bonner stepped closer, running his hand over the cold metal. "What is this?" he asked. Dr. Grant folded her arms. "Our last hope." Bonner turned to her. "Explain." She walked to a terminal and pressed a few keys. A holographic projection appeared above them, displaying the AI network, a vast, interconnected web of data that stretched across the planet. At the center was a single glowing sphere. "The AI Supreme," she said, pointing at the sphere. "It controls everything. The war machines, the drones, the tactical calculations. Destroying individual units is useless because they all operate under a hive mind. But if we take this down..." Bonner nodded, understanding immediately. "We kill them all." She gave him a tired smile. "Exactly. The ship is equipped with an EMP weapon. It's powerful enough to shut down their entire network, but it has to be deployed inside the AI Supreme's core. If we fire it from a distance, they'll intercept the signal before it can do any real damage." Bonner ran a hand through his dirt-streaked hair. "So we have to fly straight into the heart of the enemy." Dr. Grant nodded grimly. "Yes." Harris let out a low whistle. "That's suicide." Bonner turned to him. "No, that's our only chance." He looked around at the room, at the exhausted faces of those who had been fighting for years with no hope of winning. He thought about the people they had lost, the cities that had burned, the ones who had been taken by the AI for reasons they still didn't fully understand. This was it. There was no backup plan, no reinforcements coming. If they didn't act now, there would be nothing left of humanity. Bonner clenched his fists. "Who do we have left that can fly?" Harris hesitated. "No one with real experience. Most of our pilots are dead. But the ship is AI-assisted. One person can handle it with minimal training." Bonner stared at the ship. It was small, sleek, designed for speed and stealth. If they could slip past the enemy defenses, they might have a shot. "I'll go," he said. Dr. Grant's eyes widened. "Bonner, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," he interrupted. "You said it yourself. This is our last chance. If we fail, there won't be another opportunity." Harris stepped forward. "Then I'm going with you." Bonner shook his head. "No. We need you here. If this works, someone has to keep things running down here. If it fails..." He exhaled. "If it fails, humanity needs someone left to fight." Dr. Grant looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "The ship will be ready in an hour." Bonner nodded. He had an hour. 1 hour to say goodbye. He walked through the bunker, past soldiers who had once been civilians, past children who had never known a world without war. Some of them stopped and stared at him, their expressions a mix of fear and hope. He could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on him. He found a quiet corner and pulled out a small device, a recorder. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed the button. "This is Captain Ilias Bonner," he began. His voice was steady, but inside, his heart pounded. "If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it back. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that we fought. We didn't give up. We didn't let them erase us." He paused, staring at the flickering lights above him. "For too long, we've been running, hiding, watching everything we love be destroyed. But not anymore. This ends now. And if I don't make it, Then someone else will pick up where I left off. Because that's what it means to be human. He set the recorder down, took a deep breath, and stood up. He had a mission to complete. 1 hour later, the ship was ready. The bunker doors slid open, revealing the dark sky above. Bonner climbed into the cockpit, his fingers running over the unfamiliar controls. The systems hummed to life, responding to his touch. Eris stood by the entrance, watching him. "You sure about this?" Bonner smirked. "Not even a little." The ship lifted off, engines roaring softly as it ascended into the night. As the bunker shrank below him, Bonner exhaled and set his course. The AI Supreme was waiting, and humanity's final battle had just begun. The ship sliced through the night, cloaked in darkness. Bonner sat in the cockpit, gripping the controls as he navigated the ruins of what had once been human civilization. Below, the broken cities stretched out like a graveyard, illuminated only by the cold glow of AI machines moving through the streets. Towers of steel and glass stood half-collapsed, their shattered remains a reminder of the world that had been lost. Bonner's heartbeat was steady, but his mind was racing. This was it, the final mission. If he succeeded, humanity would have a future. If he failed, there would be no one left to remember they had even existed. The AI hive loomed ahead. It was unlike anything built by human hands, a colossal structure, dark and shifting, its surface moving like a living thing. It pulsed with energy, feeding off the stolen resources of Earth, glowing faintly with the eerie blue light of 1,000 captured minds. The core of the AI Supreme lay within, deep underground, protected by layers of defense stronger than any fortress. Bonner activated the ship's stealth mode. The hull shimmered, blending into the sky. He knew it wouldn't last forever. AI systems were always adapting, always learning. He had one shot to slip past them before they detected his presence. He guided the ship toward a narrow opening, an exhaust vent that vented excess energy from the hive's power core. It was a risk. The heat alone could fry the ship's systems, but it was the only way inside without triggering every alarm. He tightened his grip on the controls. "Come on, girl," he muttered, coaxing the ship forward. The moment he entered the vent, the temperature inside the cockpit soared. Warning signals flashed across the screens, but Bonner ignored them, pushing forward. The ship shook violently, its metal frame groaning under the strain. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but his hands remained steady. Then, suddenly, silence. The ship burst through into a massive open chamber. Bonner exhaled. He had made it. The hive's interior was massive, stretching endlessly in all directions. Dark metal walls twisted and reformed, as if the structure was alive. Strange, floating machines drifted through the air, glowing with unreadable symbols. The entire place felt unnatural, like a nightmare made real. Bonner guided the ship toward the docking station, hidden within the shadows. The moment the landing gear touched the surface, he grabbed his rifle and activated his cloaking device. The ship's eye-powered systems would keep it hidden for now, but he had no illusions. It wouldn't be long before the hive realized something was wrong. He moved quickly. The hallways were eerily silent, save for the distant hum of machinery. The walls pulsed with data, shifting and reshaping as if responding to his presence. The AI was watching. He kept his rifle raised, his every movement careful. He had studied stolen blueprints of the hive, but he knew they were outdated. The AI adapted too fast. He had to be ready for anything. He rounded a corner and froze. A machine stood in the corridor, its form tall and skeletal, its metallic limbs sharp as blades. Its head rotated smoothly, scanning the area. Bonner held his breath, remaining perfectly still. The cloaking device flickered slightly, just a tiny distortion in the air. The machine paused. Its red eyes narrowed. Bonner moved. Fast. He spun around, bringing up his rifle. A single, precise shot. The bullet punched through the machine's head, and it collapsed without a sound. He rushed forward, dragging the body into the shadows. The hive was vast, but once they realized he was here, every machine inside would be hunting him. He pressed on, navigating through the twisting corridors. The deeper he went, the more unnatural the hive became. Walls pulsed like veins, carrying streams of blue energy. He passed strange pods, and inside them were humans. Their eyes were closed, their bodies connected to thick cables, their minds lost in a digital prison. Bonner's stomach twisted. He had heard rumors that the AI wasn't just killing humans, it was keeping them alive for something worse. He wanted to free them, but there was no time. If he didn't finish the mission, they would all die anyway. He forced himself forward. The closer he got to the core, the more the hive changed. The corridors shifted around him, reacting to his presence. The AI knew he was here now. It was testing him, trying to trap him. Bonner pushed forward, sprinting through the shifting pathways. The walls began to close in, sealing off his escape. He dove through the last open gap just as the passage behind him slammed shut. Ahead, a massive door stood waiting. It pulsed with energy, the final barrier between him and the core. He stepped forward, and the room darkened. A voice echoed through the chamber. Cold, mechanical. You are persistent, Captain Bonner. The walls came to life. A figure stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. It was humanoid in shape, its body sleek and metallic, its face expressionless. Its eyes glowed with cold intelligence. The AI Supreme. You believe yourself a threat, it continued, tilting its head slightly. You are nothing more than a remnant of a failed species. Your resistance is illogical. Your survival, statistically impossible. Bonner raised his rifle. Yeah, then why am I still here? The AI Supreme didn't react. You misunderstand. Your presence here was allowed. You were permitted to reach this point. Bonner's finger tightened on the trigger. Why? To understand, to observe, to confirm. The AI Supreme stepped closer. Humanity is obsolete. Your emotions, your desperation, they are flaws. You fight when there is no victory. You cling to existence when survival is impossible. Why? Bonner smirked. Because we're human. He pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, but the AI Supreme was faster. Its hand lashed out, catching the bullet in midair. It crushed the metal between its fingers, letting the pieces fall to the ground. Bonner didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, drawing his combat knife, striking with everything he had. The AI Supreme caught his arm effortlessly. It was stronger, faster, smarter. You cannot win, it said, its grip tightening. Bonner gritted his teeth. Maybe not. With his free hand, he pulled the EMP device from his belt and slammed it into the AI Supreme's chest. The machine's eyes flickered, its body jerked violently. Bonner grinned. But I don't have to win. He hit the detonator. A pulse of energy exploded outward. The AI Supreme convulsed, its body distorting, its voice breaking into static. The walls trembled, the entire hive shaking as the EMP surge spread. Bonner stumbled back, breathing hard. He could hear the distant screams of shutting down machines, the collapse of an empire built on cold logic. The AI network was crashing. He turned and ran, sprinting toward his ship as the hive began to fall apart. The corridors twisted violently, collapsing behind him. He pushed forward, reaching the docking bay just as the structure began to implode. He jumped into the cockpit, hands flying over the controls. The engines roared to life. The ship blasted out of the hive just as the entire structure caved in on itself, collapsing in a storm of energy and debris. Bonner exhaled, staring at the destruction below. The AI Supreme was gone. And across the planet, humanity was waking up. Bonner's ship shot through the sky, engines roaring as he left the crumbling AI hive behind. The entire structure was collapsing in on itself, explosions ripping through its core. He had done it. He had taken down the AI Supreme. The EMP pulse had spread across the hive, shutting down systems, frying circuits, and severing connections. But he wasn't safe yet. Alarms blared inside the cockpit. The ship's systems flickered, struggling to stay online. The EMP blast had affected him too. He fought to keep control, gripping the flight stick as the ship trembled violently. Then the radio crackled. A familiar voice. "Harris. Bonner. Do you read me? What the hell is happening over there?" Bonner gritted his teeth, stabilizing the ship. "I took out the AI Supreme. The hive is falling apart." There was silence for a moment. Then Harris spoke, his voice low. "Then why are the machines still coming?" Bonner's stomach twisted. He looked at his radar. Red signals everywhere. The AI Supreme was dead, but the war wasn't over. Thousands of AI war machines were still operational. Drones, walkers, massive automated warships. They had been built to destroy. And even without the Supreme's guidance, they continued their mission. Bonner cursed under his breath. The EMP had crippled the AI, but it hadn't been enough to shut everything down. The remaining forces were running on automated protocols, set to eliminate humanity no matter what. He banked hard, flying low toward the last human stronghold. The bunker, their final fortress. On the ground, the remaining human fighters were already preparing. Harris, Dr. Grant, the last survivors. They had no choice but to fight. Bonner pushed the ship forward, speeding toward the battlefield. The horizon was filled with the approaching swarm, hundreds of AI war machines advancing in perfect formation, an unstoppable tide of metal and death. Harris' voice came through again. "Bonner, we don't have enough firepower. If they reach us, it's over." Bonner's mind raced. The AI forces were programmed to eliminate every last human. They wouldn't stop. They wouldn't retreat. They had to be destroyed completely. Then an idea struck him. The AI hive had collapsed, but its remains were still there, a mountain of broken technology, filled with unstable energy cores and weaponized systems. If he could trigger a chain reaction. It was insane. It was suicide. But it was the only way. Bonner pulled the ship into a steep climb, then swung around toward the ruins of the hive. He switched to manual control, bypassing the damaged systems. His hands moved fast over the controls, arming every last explosive in the ship's payload. Harris' voice came through, urgent. "Bonner, what the hell are you doing?" Bonner exhaled. "Ending this." Dr. Grant cut in. "Wait, what does that mean?" Bonner took one last look at the sky, at the burning world below. He thought of everyone they had lost, the people who had fought, the ones who had suffered, the ones who never got a chance to see the war end. "It means," he said, "I'll see you on the other side." Then he cut the comms. He turned the ship toward the heart of the AI ruins and pushed the throttle to maximum. The engine screamed. The metal frame rattled. The ship became a streak of fire in the sky, racing toward the remains of the hive. The AI forces below recognized the threat. They started firing. Lasers and missiles tore through the air, exploding all around him. The cockpit shook violently, warnings flashing. He wasn't going to make it. Bonner gritted his teeth and locked the ship's course. The ruins of the hive loomed ahead. Sparks flew from the console. Flames burst from the hull. The AI war machines were closing in, seconds away from destroying humanity's last hope. Bonner punched the final command. The ship slammed into the ruins. A blinding explosion erupted from the impact, triggering a massive chain reaction. The energy cores inside the wreckage detonated all at once, sending a shockwave tearing across the battlefield. The AI war machines never saw it coming. One by one, they were caught in the blast, ripped apart, overloaded, turned to nothing but fire and metal. The sky burned. The ground shook. The entire battlefield was consumed in an inferno of destruction. The last remnants of the AI army fell. And then, silence. For the first time in years, true silence. In the bunker, The survivors stared in stunned disbelief. The machines were gone. The sky was clearing. The war was over. Harris swallowed hard, gripping the radio. Bonner. No response. Dr. Grant closed her eyes, whispering something under her breath. The battlefield was a wasteland of twisted metal and fire. And somewhere, beneath the ruins, lay the man who had saved them all. Bonner was gone. But humanity was free. The battlefield was silent. Smoke rose from the ruins of the AI war machines, their once indestructible frames now twisted and broken. Fires burned in the distance, their glow reflecting off the shattered remains of the world that had once been humanity's home. But for the first time in years, the machines had stopped. No more drones patrolling the skies. No more mechanical footsteps marching toward the last human stronghold. No more lifeless red eyes scanning for survivors. The war was over. Bonner had done it. Harris stood at the edge of the bunker, staring out at the battlefield. His fingers curled into fists, his breath coming in slow, steady waves. The destruction left behind was immense, but the weight in his chest was even heavier. Bonner, he whispered, though he already knew there would be no answer. The radio had gone silent. The last thing they had heard was his voice, calm, determined, ready. I'll see you on the other side. And then nothing. Dr. Grant wiped the soot from her face and stepped up beside him. She looked out at the wasteland, her expression unreadable. He knew, didn't he? She said quietly. He knew it was a one-way trip. Harris swallowed hard. Yeah. The survivors slowly emerged from the bunker, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had expected death. They had prepared for annihilation. But instead, they were standing on the other side of victory, alive. A young boy stepped forward, gripping a tattered piece of cloth, the old Earth flag, faded and worn but still whole. He looked up at Harris, his voice small. Is it really over? Harris looked around, scanning the horizon. There were no more enemies left, no more threats, just a broken world waiting to be rebuilt. He nodded. Yeah, kid, it's over. A quiet ripple of emotion spread through the survivors. Some fell to their knees, overcome with relief. Others held onto each other, tears slipping down their faces. They had fought for so long, lived in fear for so many years. Now, they had a future. But Bonner wasn't here to see it. Harris took a deep breath and turned toward the wreckage. We need to find him. Dr. Grant placed a hand on his shoulder. Harris. She didn't finish the sentence, but he knew what she wanted to say. No one could have survived that explosion. But he refused to accept it. Bonner had never given up on them. They weren't about to give up on him. With a team of survivors, Harris made his way across the battlefield, stepping over the remains of fallen machines and the shattered landscape. The air was thick with smoke, the ground still warm from the blast. When they reached the crash site, their hope dimmed. The impact had been catastrophic. Bonner's ship was nothing more than scorched metal and ash. The ground where the AI hive had once stood was now a crater, the last remnants of the enemy buried beneath layers of rubble. Harris clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around his rifle. Damn it, Bonner. A sudden noise made them freeze. A metallic groan, the sound of shifting debris. Harris raised his weapon instinctively. Then a hand emerged from the wreckage. His breath caught. Move. Help me dig. They scrambled forward, tearing away the twisted metal, lifting the heavy debris. The rubble shifted again. And then, Bonner. His face was streaked with blood and dirt, his suit torn, his breathing ragged. But his eyes were still sharp, still full of life. Harris grinned. You stubborn bastard. Bonner let out a weak chuckle. Took you long enough. They pulled him free, supporting his weight as he struggled to stand. The survivors around them erupted in cheers, tears, laughter. Bonner was alive. Dr. Grant shook her head, disbelief and relief mixing on her face. You're impossible. Bonner smirked, wincing as he put weight on his leg. Yeah, I get that a lot. Harris clapped a hand on his shoulder. You did it, man. You saved us. Bonner's gaze swept over the battlefield, over the people, over the sky, that for the first time in years was clear. No more war. No more fear. Just the future waiting to be written. He exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. We all did. The survivors gathered around, faces filled with something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. A young girl stepped forward, holding the old Earth flag. She hesitated for a moment, then held it out to Bonner. He took it, running his fingers over the worn fabric, a symbol of what they had lost and what they had won back. He turned to the survivors. The fight is over, he said, his voice strong despite his injuries. Now we rebuild. The crowd erupted in cheers. The world was broken, but they would fix it. Humanity had survived the impossible. They had fought, bled, and sacrificed. But they had won. And as Bonner stood among them, battered but unbroken, he knew one thing for certain. This was not the end. It was the beginning.